Well, good morning, and it's a beautiful morning here, a little moister in May, and I'm here to talk to you about some of my very favorite plants for this year, starting with an unusual variety of Weigela that we grew from little sticks last year. It's called April Snow, and as you may know, it's kind of a popular shrub in the industry, and it typically has what might be described as sort of old lipstick color pink. So we decided a white one might be promising, and we were delighted this year to see it in full bloom. So Weigelas are kind of a somewhat cut-back shrub. They can be kept at about, I don't know, 3.5 to 4 feet. But they have a kind of a rangy growth, but I think with careful pruning it can be very graceful and beautiful. So that's one of my faves in the shrubs right now that we're offering. And then if we walk over here, we've got an array of plants from Intrinsic Perennials in Hebron, Illinois. And Intrinsic Perennials is a national leader in hardy herbaceous plant material. And Brent Horvath is the owner, and he has bred plants for longevity, hardiness, and special features. And one I'm going to point out to you is actually not in this little section here, but it's over there. And the unfortunate thing about your not being able to be right here with me today is that this plant, which is called Polemonium Heaven Sent, is in his purple pot. That means that he developed it. Is a strong partial shade to light shade perennial flower with blue flowers and a magical sweet scent that it's not open right now, but that once you smell it, you have to have it. It's a wonderful plant. It has some nice tinting and texture and a nice foil to other heftier shade plants like hostas, but has the additional value of fragrance, which is sometimes hard to achieve. All right. Peonies have been bred for centuries, and a lot of the old ones that people have in their yard are oftentimes fragrant, which is nice, but they're oftentimes big and floppy. So over the last 25 years at Squire House, we've made an effort to introduce to you a wide range of peonies that have the capability of being quite strong in the garden, some of which need no support whatsoever. And we pick varieties that have a little smaller stature. We look for really good color and really good flower form, and if we can get fragrance, we try to. A lot of the single forms of peonies, in other words, the ones that only have the single petals, are lacking fragrance. But the plus side of them is that they don't need support because the flowers are light and sort of buoyant, and they don't open up. So this year, it's exciting for us this year because we not only planted fall planted stock from Clem Song Sparrow Farms, which all did beautifully and will be flowering. As you see, there's buds on these. But also, we did some spring plantings as well that are just coming up over here. So I think we have about 8 or 9 varieties to choose from of varying colors. There's reds, corals, whites, pinks, and ready to plant and live forever. A beautiful plant for your garden. This year, as in prior years, we are going to be offering an amazing array of ferns. And a lot of people who come to our store, I'll say, oh, we have beautiful ferns. And I say, well, we have lots of ferns. And that's because they have ostrich ferns, which are prolific and very invasive and aggressive ferns, and very common, so they end up being divided and transplanted into people's gardens, and then they take over. None of our ferns have this quality. They're smaller than ostrich ferns. They keep their beauty through the entire summer, and they do not spread. A lot of them offer interesting, subtle characteristics. This lady in red, as it develops, has a nice bright green, soft texture, and the stems, as it gets older and more mature, have a red tint to them, so there's a nice contrast there. Looking further down, these are just all growing, emerging now, because the ferns tend to be a little bit shy in the spring, so they're not coming up fully, but we have, this is a crested male fern, and this is another good fern genus, Dryopteris, that was Ethereum. And then we have just plain native ferns that are relatively inexpensive for people who are reclaiming woodlands, ground cover type ferns. So we have plenty on hand for you, and they're wonderful contrast to the heftier foliage such as hostas, and as you can see here, the contrast even in between these two. Although the color tint is similar, the textures are very, very, very different. But we have a number of other specialties. This is fairly newish bleeding heart. A lot of people have bleeding hearts, but this one has this lovely tinted foliage, and the flowers are not pink. And again, we're trying to introduce to you a little bit richer flower colors, such as this Valentine bleeding heart. And further along in the shade department, this is a fairly new plant for us, this little ground cover euonymus, which would be very useful for near the edges of paving or little short blankets of greenery in the partial shade. And three others that I'll point out to you before we say goodbye this morning are epimediums. We have lots of those. They have really beautiful foliage that stays lovely, lovely all summer. Kind of floats on these wiry stems. And then the spring flowers are beautiful too. You know, nice, delicate. This one's called Lilafee. And down here is another plant I like to use often in the garden. It's called beautyberry. It's a dieback shrub. It gets about 2.5 to 3 feet in one season, and it produces these very small, unusually lavender purple berries in the fall. Very showy in the fall. And lastly, for this morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about this Aruncus. I saw this plant at the Chicago Lurie Gardens in Millennium Park underneath trees in a big bank, and I was very impressed with it. It's very low care, and it takes shade, and it produces a really nice shrubby mound that furthermore, those creamy white flowers that come in early summer, which are of course beautiful and the bees love. But more importantly, it's independent, and it sort of fills space without being aggressive. And this is a way to make larger plantings or beds lower maintenance, because you're using plants that take up space, hold their own, live for years and years, offer beautiful texture and color without having to be fussed with. So these kinds of perennials are extremely valuable. And so as you can see, we have a great diversity of plant material, annuals, specialty shrubs and trees, amazing perennials that nobody else has. And we also have knowledgeable staff that can help guide you with your gardens. And we want you to have great success, and we have had 25 years of providing that for our customers, and we're anxious that you come and see us soon. And thank you for listening. That's it.